There's a strange paradox humming beneath modern life. We move faster than any civilization before us, yet we feel perpetually behind. Behind on messages, behind on dreams, behind on ourselves. The clocks are precise, the network's instantaneous, the calendar is optimized, and still the mind whispers, hurry, always hurry. Imagine a river swollen by rain, rushing so violently that it forgets its own reflection. This is how many of us live. Speed promises freedom. It tells us that if we just move quicker, think faster, respond sooner, optimize harder, we will finally arrive. But arrive where? And who will arrive? We were not born this way. A child does not experience time as a race. 5 minutes can be an eternity. An afternoon can feel like a lifetime. Somewhere along the way, we learn to compress experience into outcomes, to treat time as something to conquer rather than inhabit. We stopped being in moments and began using them. Speed is seductive because it feels like control. When life accelerates, slowing down can feel like failure, like falling behind an invisible procession marching toward success, relevance, safety. Yet this procession never stops to ask whether it is going anywhere meaningful at all. The modern mind is trained to skim the surface of life, to touch many things deeply touching none. We scroll, swipe, skim, jump. Information replaces wisdom. Stimulation replaces nourishment. And the nervous system, ancient and patient, does not understand this pace. It only knows threat or safety, chasing or resting. When everything becomes urgent, nothing feels sacred. Mental health quietly erodes not because we are weak, but because we are overclocked. The mind was never meant to process 1,000 signals an hour, to live in perpetual anticipation, to remain alert without rest. We mistake this constant vigilance for productivity. But it is closer to exile, exile from the body, from breath, from the simple sanity of being here. Slowing down, then, is not laziness. It is rebellion, a refusal to let life pass by uninhabited. It is choosing to feel the weight of a moment rather than sprint through it. It is daring to ask whether speed has made us efficient at everything except living. And here is the quiet truth no one advertises. Speed dulls pain by numbing us, but it also dulls joy. The faster we go, the less we feel, until life becomes a blur of tasks completed and days forgotten. To slow down is to let life catch up to you, and that can be terrifying, because what catches up first is not peace, it is awareness. And awareness changes everything. Beneath every thought, beneath every ambition and anxiety, there is a body listening, long before philosophy, before language, before plans and deadlines. There was a nervous system designed for rhythm, alertness followed by rest, effort followed by recovery, day and night, breath in, breath out. Even the heart knows this dance. But modern speed has broken the rhythm. When life becomes a continuous emergency, the body does not distinguish between an email notification and a predator in the grass. Urgency is urgency. Stress is stress. Cortisol flows, muscles tighten, attention narrows. The mind becomes a lookout tower, scanning endlessly for the next demand. This is not a moral failure. It is biology. An anxious mind is often a tired nervous system pretending it can endure forever. We call it motivation, hustle, drive. But beneath the labels, the system is overextended, living in a state meant only for brief moments of danger, not entire lives. Slowing down is essential for mental health because it signals safety, not intellectually, somatically. When you move slowly, breathe deeply, linger instead of rush, the body receives a message older than thought. You are not being chased. And only then does healing begin. Notice how clarity arrives not in chaos, but in pauses. Not while multitasking, but while walking. Not in noise, but in silence. The mind settles when it senses there is no immediate threat. Creativity returns. Perspective widens. Emotions soften their grip. Speed fragments attention. Slowness gathers. This is why burnout feels like emptiness rather than exhaustion. The system has been alert for too long. It no longer knows how to rest. Even stillness feels uncomfortable, as if something should be happening, as if silence itself were dangerous. Many people fear slowing down because when the noise stops, the feelings begin. grief, loneliness, uncertainty. But these emotions were not created by stillness. They were postponed by speed. Mental health is not about eliminating discomfort. It is about creating enough inner space to meet it without collapsing. Slowness provides that space. It allows sensations to complete their cycles rather than remain frozen in the body as tension, anxiety, or numbness. You do not calm the mind by forcing it to be calm. You calm the mind by showing it, gently and repeatedly, that the world is not on fire. A slower pace does not solve every problem, but it changes the relationship to problems. They become experiences rather than emergencies, questions rather than threats. And in that shift, the mind remembers something essential. It was never meant to run endlessly. It was meant to rest, to wander, to return. If slowing down is so healing, why do we resist it? Because beneath speed lives a quieter force. Fear. To slow down is to relinquish the illusion of control. When we are busy, we feel necessary. When we rush, we feel important. Motion becomes proof of worth. Stillness threatens that identity. It asks an uncomfortable question. Who are you when nothing is demanded of you? Speed keeps us oriented toward the future where hope and anxiety coexist. Slowness brings us back to the present, where uncertainty lives without explanation, and the present offers no guarantees. In slowing down, we encounter time not as a resource, but as a mystery. Minutes stretch, moments deepen. We feel our age, our breath, our impermanence. We remember that life is not infinite, and that realization can feel like grief. Busyness is often a negotiation with mortality. If I keep moving, perhaps I can outrun the truth that everything changes, that nothing is secured forever, that even I am temporary. But here is the paradox the sages understood. It is precisely our impermanence that makes life vivid. A sunset, rushed through, is just color. A sunset lingered in becomes meaning. Mental health suffers when we live as if time were an enemy to defeat, rather than a companion to walk with. The faster we try to control life, the more anxious we become, because control was never actually possible. Slowing down does not mean giving up responsibility. It means releasing the fantasy that urgency equals effectiveness. Some of the most transformative moments in human life, love, insight, forgiveness, cannot be scheduled or rushed. They arrive when space is made. When you slow down, you may feel behind. But behind what? A collective momentum that rarely asks where it is going. A timeline that rewards speed but forgets depth. Stillness reveals a different metric of success: coherence, alignment, a sense that one's inner pace matches one's outer life. And this is why slowing down feels radical. It shifts value from accumulation to attention, from efficiency to presence, from control to trust. The fear beneath speed is the fear of falling apart if we stop. But the deeper truth is this: what falls apart was never stable to begin with. What remains, the breath, the body, the quiet awareness watching it all. That is what heals, and it has been waiting patiently for you to slow enough to notice. There is a reason memory does not obey speed. We do not remember the days we rushed through. We remember the pauses, the waiting rooms, the long walks with no destination, the afternoons that unfolded slowly enough for meaning to seep in. When you slow down, life begins to speak in a different language. It speaks through subtlety. The way light rests on a wall, the rhythm of another person's breathing, the ache beneath a smile you had not noticed before. These things are always present, but speed renders them invisible. It turns experience into noise, flattens nuance into blur. Ancient traditions understood this. Monasteries were built around silence. Sabbaths were woven into time itself, not as indulgence, but as necessity. Rest was not a reward for productivity. It was the condition for sanity. In slowing down, we remember who we were before we became functions, before we learned to justify our existence with output. The self returns not as an achievement, but as a presence. Stories surface in stillness, not narratives we construct, but truths that rise uninvited. You may remember something unfinished, someone you loved, a path you abandoned because it did not move fast enough to be rewarded. These memories are not interruptions, they are invitations. Mental health is not the absence of pain. It is the capacity to listen without fleeing. Speed teaches us to override intuition. Slowness restores it. When you pause, you begin to sense when something is wrong, not dramatically, but quietly. A subtle tightening, a fatigue that is not physical, a longing that cannot be named. These signals are the body's wisdom, long ignored, and in listening, we begin to repair the relationship with ourselves. This is why slowing down often feels emotional. Tears come without explanation. Laughter rises unexpectedly. The nervous system, finally unthreatened, releases what it has been holding. This is not weakness, it is completion. We do not heal by adding more. We heal by allowing what is already here to move. In a culture that worships speed, pausing can feel lonely. But solitude is not emptiness. It is spaciousness, a place where life can echo. And when you linger there long enough, something unexpected happens. Meaning reappears, not as a grand revelation, but as a quiet familiarity, as if you are remembering something you never truly forgot. Nothing that matters moves quickly. Love unfolds at the pace of trust. Creativity breathes in cycles of boredom and insight. Grief takes the time it takes. Healing refuses deadlines. The heart does not hurry. Speed damages relationships not through conflict, but through absence. Through listening that waits for its turn to speak. Through conversations compressed into transactions. Through moments half-lived because the mind is already elsewhere. To slow down with another person is to offer them the rarest gift, presence without agenda. Mental health is relational. We regulate one another through tone, eye contact, silence. But this regulation requires time. A nervous system cannot synchronize in haste. It needs slowness to feel safe enough to open. Consider how quickly we now move past emotions. We label them, analyze them, manage them, anything but feel them. But emotions, like waves, need space to rise and fall. When rushed, they stagnate. They become anxiety, irritability, numbness. Slowing down allows emotions to complete themselves. There is also joy here, a deeper joy than excitement. The joy of being immersed rather than entertained, of savor rather than stimulation. It is quieter, yes, but it lasts. The pace of the heart is not the pace of the market. When we align our lives with systems that value speed above all else, we slowly betray our own nature, and the cost is subtle at first, a restlessness, a dull ache, until one day we realize we no longer feel fully alive. Slowness returns us to depth. In depth, conversations widen. In depth, silence is not awkward, but intimate. In depth, we stop performing and start relating. This is why slowing down can feel like falling in love with life again. Awkward, vulnerable, disarming. The armor of urgency drops, and beneath it, something tender breathes. To care deeply, one must move slowly enough to feel. And in feeling, the mind softens, the heart steadies, the world becomes inhabitable again. Slowing down is not a technique. It is a remembering that you are not a machine, that your worth does not increase with velocity, that life is not something to get through, but something to be with. The human rhythm is ancient. Wake and rest, focus and drift, speak and listen. It cannot be optimized without being destroyed. Mental health is what happens when we live in harmony with this rhythm rather than against it. You do not need to escape society to slow down. You need moments of deliberate presence, a walk without a destination, a breath taken fully, a meal eaten without distraction, a pause before responding. These small acts accumulate. They teach the nervous system a new story. There is time. You are safe. Let the world rush if it must. You are allowed to move differently. In slowness, the mind learns patience. In patience, it learns trust. And in trust, it releases its grip on constant vigilance. As you slow, notice what changes, not dramatically, gently, the way thoughts loosen, the way emotions pass more cleanly, the way attention deepens instead of scatters. This is not retreat. It is return. Return to the breath, return to the body, return to the quiet intelligence that knows when enough is enough. And perhaps, as you sit here now, listening, you can feel it, the invitation to pause, to let the next moment arrive without chasing it, to rest in the simple miracle of being alive, unhurried. There is nothing you need to fix right now, nothing you need to become, nowhere else you need to be. Just This breath, this moment, this slowing dot, and in this slowing, the mind remembers how to heal.